One of my favorite theories to speculate on is Radagon's secret of mimicry. It's arguably one of the biggest reveals directly given to our Tarnished on their journey throughout the lands between. The general consensus being that after Marika shattered the Elden Ring, Radagon became physically merged with her out of a punishment given by the Elden Beast, aka Greater Will. Radagon's imprisonment within Marika stems from his desire to become like her, to become a god, which is why he desperately attempts to repair the Elden Ring. Marika mocks Radagon prior to the shattering, stating, "O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered both, mine other self." The fact that Marika refers to Radagon as a leal hound of the Golden Order could have a multitude of meanings. Leal means to have loyalty, and a hound is a breed of dog used for hunting, especially when able to track by scent. A hound can also refer to a person who avidly pursues something, therefore hounding somebody can mean to harass, persecute, or pursue relentlessly. The term hound can be used to describe a promiscuous man as well. All of these definitions fit Radagon, as he was a Golden Order fundamentalist who clung to the Order to become complete, as he himself pursued godhood. He abandoned his queen for another to pursue his own desires. Again, a hound can be an individual who is morally reprehensible. Marika's bedchamber dialogue highlights Radagon's desire to become a god, but it can also hint at his past in reference to calling him a hound, which is the name for a beast. The Golden Order caste system places those with beast-like features of the Crucible in a lower tier of importance. Bok is ashamed of who he is, due to how his demi-human genetics are perceived as inferior within the Order. Bok wishes to become reborn through Rennalla's capabilities, to gain societal acceptance and love, but with the encouragement of his mother's unconditional love via the my beloved prattling pate, he realizes that true beauty comes from within. Bok's quest is a lesson of external gratification versus internal. Bok's quest displays Radagon's journey into becoming reborn through the science of the Mimic tier, both characters relying on Rennalla's ability of rebirth, both ashamed of their Crucible heritage. Bok even shares Radagon's skills as a seamster. They even both utilize the same gold sewing needle. The needle was a tool brought by Radagon from Lundell. It is found in the Church of Vows, where Radagon joined Queen Rennala in union. Prior to Radagon's union with Rennala, he was the head of a great golden host that led crusades into Liurnia. Host can mean an army. It can also mean a living organism on or in which a parasite lives. This seems to connect to the Elden Beast, aka Greater Will, that feeds off of those buried near the roots of the Erd Tree or minor Erd Trees. The Crusades were not only to gain more control for the Greater Will, but also to feed the Erd Tree nutrients. The term host in biology can also mean an individual into which a tissue, part, or embryo is transplanted from another. Although we won't get into the subject today, this refers to cloning. As mentioned in a prior video, cloning or creating artificial life is a big part of the Elden Ring narrative, as shown by the evolution of the Albinaurics, as well as the theme of grafting and its connection to the grafted scions. When Radagon married Renalla, he ordered the Carian magic preceptors to don masks of confidence, to make it clear that all of their matters were to be kept strictly private. The mask of confidence has its mouth sewn shut with gold thread. This gold thread is the gold hair that we see in the gold needle, even if only symbolically. So, what matters do you think Radagon wished to be kept strictly private? One matter could be Radagon's transfiguration into Marika's mimic at the Church of Vows. The gold hair found within the needle is Marika's, which I theorize was used in collaboration with the knowledge of Renalla's mimicry passed down from the Nox to create the physical form of Radagon that we know him as today, the second Elden Lord. Larval tears are extremely powerful items of transformation. From the example shown here, larval tears are often dropped by larger enemies disguised as wandering nobles, displaying how beasts can be formed into men via the ability of the tear. Another matter regarding the masks of confidence could pertain to Rennalla's children, Rykard, Radon, and Ranni. I believe that Rennala is unable to give birth due to her silver tear heritage, as the Carians could be created by the Nox, who used larval or mimic tears to mirror the astrologers that settled on the Moonlight Altar. This is why the sorcerers in the Academy that are true descendants of the astrologers conflict with the artificially created Carians. This is also why Rennala forbids the practice of the primeval current, outside of it obviously being dangerous. The practice of the current is a way for astrologers to learn about their origin and gain the wisdom of stone. Rennala, being artificially created, already knows her origin and derives her power from the moon, as the Nox did before her. The Carians could be first-generation Albinaurics, which is why first-gens are found in the Carian Manor and the village of Albinaurics is found directly under the Moonlight Altar. More context clues to indicate this connection includes how Rennala mirrors her appearance to Philia, as well as her size. The Carian crest mirrors the Nox. Both groups are afflicted with mobility issues, utilizing wolves for strength. Both cultures reflect a matriarchal society, and both have a shared belief in the moon's guidance. Many would point to the fact that those with Mimicry heritage bleed silver, therefore establishing that Renalla is not artificially created. However, both Pydia and Loretta bleed red, and I believe both are Albinaurics as well. While Pydia's evidence includes an appearance that matches first-gen Albinaurics, he also sells the Ripple Blade, which explains the second-gen Albinaurics' origin as a drop relating to the larval tier, and of course serves the Carians. While Loretta, like Radagon, utilizes a horse due to her Albinauric blood clots, seeks a holy land for the Albinaurics, and like Pydia, serve the Carians. Crucible second-gen Albinaurics also bleed red due to the fusion of their DNA with accursed blood. This accursed blood is the blood of the Crucible. This is why Omen are treated with such great disdain, because they are a reminder of life outside of the Golden Order. An omen is the occurrence or phenomenon believed to portend a future event, the future event in this case being the revival of the Crucible via a grand sacrifice of rebirth. Although Renalla may be unable to produce children naturally, she instead uses the gift given to her by Radagon, the Amber Egg, an oval-shaped mass of sap derived from either the Erd tree or the Crucible tree, their children each containing aspects of the Crucible. The Primordial Crucible is where all life was once blended together. Aspects of the Crucible include horns, scales, tails, feathers, and breath that spews fire. Born partially of devolution, the aspects were considered a signifier of the divine in ancient times, but is now increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization has advanced. The aspects of the Crucible are passed down either through the sap itself or the red hair found inside of the egg, the red hair most likely belonging to Radagon. Renalla endured greatly after Radagon's abandonment. Her children were taken in by Marika to join the Golden Order and then subsequently died during the Shattering, some physically, others symbolically. Ranni seemed to be the closest to Renalla, both characters representing parts of the triple goddess. Radon lives far in the east of Caelid. Rykard dwells deep within Mount Gelmir, while Ranni stayed within Liurnia, hidden away behind the manor she most likely grew up in, the only one of Renalla's children that continue to watch over her, as is evident via Renalla's boss battle. Interestingly, Rennala does not wear a wedding ring currently, but during her second phase, essentially Ranni's memory of her in her prime, she is wearing one. Her armbands earned after her defeat have the wedding ring because they are derived from her remembrance, aka her memory. Renalla's crown is dotted with red glintstones, hidden within the cross-hatched pattern. The embedded red glintstones and design are possibly crafted by Radagon himself. The Crucible is associated with the color red, as mentioned within the item description for Ordovis's Greatsword, that reads its red tint exemplifies the nature of primordial gold, said to be close in nature to life itself. The Primordial Crucible is also red, as it represents a sacrifice of blood needed to create life, like that in childbirth. In this way, the Crucible has many connections to the Formless Mother, both being taboos within the Golden Order due to their reminder of life created outside of the Erd Tree's cycle of life. As mentioned, Omen contain the accursed blood of the Crucible, which is why they share so many aspects of the Crucible, specifically aspects of horns, feathers, tails, and breath. Radagon is also associated with the color red, like the Red Wolf of Radagon. The Red Wolf of Radagon is a giant red wolf that wields sorceries and incantations. It resides in the debate parlor. The parlor was most likely a place of clashing thoughts and newfound ideas. The room contains multiple hidden tier shapes, which could relate to the debate over the Carian's origin, and the clash between moon and stars. The Red Wolf's ability to learn magic reminded me of the demi-human queens that wield staffs, and the sorcerers attempting to teach their knowledge to the demi-humans located near the hermit village. The Red Wolf is obviously a beast, yet it learned how to summon both the Golden Blade and Magic Glint Blade. A hound learning how to utilize both Golden Order fundamentalism and Glint Blade sorcery mirrors how Radagon studied both incantations and sorcery, while with Marika and Rennala, respectively. This information can be found on Radagon's icon. The icon displays mimicked roses behind the red-haired hero. On his neck, a chain of red glintstone. Glintstone created through blood sacrifice. Sacrifice is a power source for Thorn sorcerers. The thorns are also found on the deceased giants within the northern mountaintops. Radagon is also associated with thorns, as his statue features the cross-hatched design that matches the thorns blocking the Tarnished from entering the Erd Tree. Interestingly, His icon features white roses without thorns. This is symbolic of his transformation. Even though the red color of the roses are altered white through mimicry, Radagon's hair remains, a signifier of his Crucible heritage. The white rose's thorns being removed represents the removal of fangs that the beasts of the Crucible use to draw blood for the sacrifice of life. We know that the flowers are roses, due to the similar depiction of roses used in Varré's bouquet, which is a steel mace resembling a charming bouquet of roses. Varré can be found later at the Rose Church, where he acts as a missionary to gain support for his master, luminary Hewg, the area of course containing multiple blood roses. The red thorn round shield emblem is an ancient red thorn design and can be bought from the nomadic merchant at the eastern side of the Weeping Peninsula, an area heavily associated with Radagon's past. Radagon's association with red is also evident via the giant's red braid, a whip woven from the flame red hair of the fire giant. Every giant is of red hair, and Radagon was known to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. Radagon does have connections to the giants, like Muriel's use of words, giant stature, when speaking of Radagon's sculpture and the discovery of the famed sculptor who glimpsed his skeleton, the internal framework of his bones. Another example is the brick hammer, which requires the strength of a giant to wield it. The brick hammer was once wielded by a laborer who led a rebellion, and later became a champion himself. The rebellion mentioned is referring to Castle Morn. A sword monument states that Lord Godfrey sieged the castle to defeat a lone hero who fought for vengeance. The storied sword of Castle Morn is the grafted blade greatsword, a revenger's weapon, that explains a lone surviving champion from a country now vanished was so determined to continue fighting that he claimed the swords of an entire clan of warriors. This lone hero or lone champion could be Radagon, as Radagon is dubbed with both of these titles in multiple descriptions. Barrier of Gold mentions that the Liurnian Wars are when red-haired Radagon joined the hero's ranks. The skill Goldbreaker states that it is the heroic Radagon's signature attack. Radagon's red mane helm states that Radagon inherited the furious flaming red hair of his father, Radagon, and is fond of its heroic implications. Radagon's icon also refers to him as a hero. As far as the title of champion goes, we've already covered the Red Wolf of Radagon. A variant of this boss is the Red Wolf of the Champion. Barrier of Gold states that the incantation was used by the champions of the Erd Tree. When Radagon abandons Renalla, those of the Academy realize that she was no champion after all. Muriel also calls him a great champion. It also mentions how Radagon was born a champion's cub. Finally, the Beast Champion Helm states that beasts are drawn to champions. Although the Rebellion of Castle Morn is a past event, we see this event repeated during our time in the Lands Between. Both rebellions are against the oppression and enslavement of the Misbegotten. The Leonine Misbegotten stands at the end of Castle Morn, holding the grafted blade greatsword. Again, it mentions a lone surviving champion from a country now vanished. The mention of a country now vanished could be in reference to the Shadowlands, which vanished from the Lands Between via the Mimic Veil placed atop it. Many have speculated that within the Shadowlands stands the Crucible tree, and we know the Misbegotten are connected to the Crucible. The veil was placed in order to hide Marika's origin, thus making her the Eternal. In the Japanese version of the game, internal files relating to the Misbegotten are named Children of Radagon, while winged Misbegotten are labeled Radagon Chimera. This may explain why Misbegotten warriors have red hair like Radagon, and why they carry greatswords related to him. An archaic version of the word Misbegotten means an illegitimate child. Master Hewg is a Misbegotten and a smith, able to craft intricate weaponry. Like Bach, he considers himself to be ugly due to his Crucible heritage. He works as a laborer in the Round Table Hold, assigned by Marika to create a weapon that is strong enough to kill a god. He is chained to his workstation out of a punishment from a past event, possibly the Rebellion of Castle Morn. Hewg's hammer is found in the Fortified Manor, the physical version of the Round Table Hold in Lendel. Hewg's hammer states that the art of smithing is said to have originated among the giants. This is evident via the Forge of the Giants, along with Iji, a troll that has the ability to smith, as trolls are descendants of giants. A forge is a type of hearth used for heating metals by a smith to heat metal to a malleable temperature. A cut NPC named Gilliber the Redeemer of Vengeance once spoke of Hewg, stating that there's an aberration of a blacksmith past a checkpoint that leads to Stormvale. He doesn't seem to think much of anyone or anything, but oddly, he's willing to smith weapons for the Tarnished. The question for me, of course, is whether he's in need of any vengeance. Interestingly, in an earlier version of the game, the Leonine Misbegotten was known as the Leonine Aberration. The mention of vengeance reminded me of the sword monument that states Lord Godfrey sieged the castle to defeat a lone hero who fought for vengeance. Hewg is connected to Radagon in a few ways. They are both smiths, and both confined to liminal spaces pertaining to the Erd Tree, as the Round Table hold burns after the Erd Tree has been set ablaze. Hewg has a close connection to Roderika. He becomes a foster father figure to her, mirroring how Renalla did the same for Ranni, and teaches her everything he knows about spirit tuning. He explains that he's indebted to a spirit tuner that he met long ago, and that their eyes share the same hue as Roderika's. Hue can mean overall character or appearance to the mind. The spirit tuner Hewg mentions could be Ranni, as she gives the Tarnished the spirit tuner bell and spirit ashes. Not to mention, Hewg and Roderika have a father-daughter relationship, just like Radagon and Ranni. Roderika first meets the Tarnished in the middle of a mental breakdown, from watching her companions used as sacrifices to craft a grafted scion. She is frail in this moment, yet later becomes powerful enough to utilize large glove wards, which are used to comfort heroic spirits. Seleucus states that Ranni feigns her icy persona, that it hides a frail, gentle girl at heart. And of course, we also know that Ranni works with spirits, as she summons them to defend Renalla in battle. She herself is a spirit, and has close ties to Torrent, the spectral steed. In Part 2, we'll cover the genetics of Radagon's children, his possible connection with the ancient hero of Zamor, and Tezcatlipoca. I greatly appreciate your patience until then. As always, thank you so much for your time today, and I sincerely hope you all have a wonderful week.